All right. Well, I guess my background kind of, well, I guess my family was always kind of doing it. Like, especially my mom. Like, she got us into music very early. Played classical piano for something like 10 years, like a very, very long time. Then quit independently because I just kind of got tired of it. But yeah, I guess in terms of hymns, like where that kind of comes into play, like I mean, old pianos and hymns just kind of went together. Like that's just kind of what we did. We would play old hymns on old pianos, and I guess yeah, I kind of did that throughout my childhood. And like we had like these big gatherings of people, like hymn sings, where we would just kind of get everybody together, and all we would all sing like these really old hymns. So I have like so many of them at like probably every verse like dedicated to memory somewhere in the recesses of my mind. So yeah, no, hymns have always been like a big, I guess, part of my life. At the end of the day, like that's something that's always kind of been there. But yeah, I guess like that is pretty much just it. Like hymns have always kind of been around, and like especially like when I independently started actually understanding and enjoying music on my own when I was probably like as late as 14. Like that's really when I something kind of clicked, and I just kind of wanted to like make some of my own in addition to like listen to a bunch of them. So I guess and hymns still kind of come up because some of their melodies are actually like really striking. I think they had enough time after they were written to really kind of wean it down to like I guess like the best of the best. It's like classical compositions. They're like most of the ones that you hear are good because the ones that weren't good are kind of lost. So yeah, I mean, I guess that's what's cool about him. Is like tradition is sort of like I don't know, refined it, and a lot of it's pretty good on that basis. All right, I guess like a hymn that I've always really enjoyed was what was it, "Be Thou My Vision"? Because I remember like the first time I heard it, like I kind of sat down at a piano. I was probably like 6, and I like just kind of started like hitting stuff, and I found out that you can play it pretty much almost exclusively on black keys. So I thought that was cool, and so I liked it just kind of from then on. But I don't know, it's a really nice melody, and it moves around a lot. It's pretty meandering, kind of doesn't have a lot of repetition until the very end of the verse and when it repeats over. But yeah, I guess like that one's one that I've sort of grown attached to over time. And I don't know, I guess the words are pretty good too. And then I guess one that isn't that. There are actually a few that, quite a few that I'm not really that fond of, but I try not to commit them to memory. Let me think. It's a, it's a bad one. uh, Man, most of the bad ones, on the ones that I really don't like, are just newer songs, like ones that, like I said, I can't. I know there are a couple of doxologies that I always just found really boring. Like, trying to think, like, now to like grace eternal, immortal, invisible. I always thought that one's kind of just like dry, and I never got much out of it. Like, apparently some people did. They did it at the end of every service at certain churches, but yeah, I always thought it kind of sucked. Like, I'm not gonna lie. I mean, I think it's based pretty heavily on scripture, so the words are fine and dandy. But yeah, like just the tune that a lot of people use for it is just kind of like leaves a lot to be desired. It doesn't say a whole lot. Well, I guess it kind of goes without saying or really ranting that most contemporary Christian music is like objectively bad. Like a lot of it is pretty just doesn't say a whole lot. A lot of it is like very like it very specifically targets like certain like secular bands and just tries to imitate them. Like YouTube kind of coming to mind right offhand, and usually just not as well, like at all. Regardless of your opinion. I guess first of all, taking a little bit more time to actually like compose like good music behind the words. I mean, the words could use a little bit too. Like most of them are pretty like repetitious. Like most of Lincoln art. Yeah. Yeah, no, like I guess though, yeah, they're just kind of like most of the time, like they're based on 3 chords that are just repeated over and over again with very little ornamentation of any kind. And whatever ornamentation there is, it's usually yeah, once again like really just doesn't do anything for me at all. But I guess yeah, just kind of what they could do in in addition to that is also like maybe actually get back to like almost like think of writing a praise and worship song as writing like a song of some kind, like some kind of like actually like put some thought into it and is like contextually still relevant on some level, and maybe dip a little bit more heavily into the scriptures in ways that we haven't heard before, because it's like if we're trying to like praise and like if we're trying to praise like pretty much like the greatest being like in the universe, I think we should probably strive to do a better job than we're doing. Like just honestly. I guess what makes a good song is, I mean, there's a lot of different ways to go about it. I guess is kind of the tough thing about it, but I guess making something that you can kind of remember, like evokes some sort of emotion, at least to you, where it's like you play it and then like intrinsically, just like by the way that it's sort of been orchestrated, it like takes you to a certain place or like brings back a certain memory or something where it's like it triggers like a very like specific response in you and like hopefully a good one. But I think that's a good indication that you're going in the right direction. And then just on top of that, a lot of it's pretty subjective, but it's like it's something where it's kind of like if you hear a good song, you just kind of look like you're like, oh, that was a good song, and you don't necessarily like have it completely like you don't have enough time to really like deconstruct it, but you can just kind of hear it and like I guess you kind of and I guess like the main thing is just like work on your stuff until like that consistently happens, until like just you can hear it and like it makes you feel good, even though you can't necessarily like describe why it does. And then when you try to describe it, like it just gets better and better because you understand it more. I don't know, that song like Poker Face by Lady Gaga. Like I really detest that song in a very deep part of my being. Like I mean like she's a I mean, I'm definitely not a fan. Like I think she's just kind of like, like the cheap sort of version of Bjork or something and it doesn't even really sound like her, but aesthetically she kinda goes after that. But she has a couple songs where it's like there's some redeeming elements to it, I guess, if you really want to listen to Lady Gaga. But that one just has nothing for me. Like it's really repetitive. There's not much going on. It's trying to do the Europop thing and just failing miserably with every single note. Like I don't like that song. I guess like a song that like I can consistently come back to, or I guess a piece is probably more like it, but like the opening movement to Glassworks by Philip Glass. Yeah, that like just that section it's entirely on piano and stuff, and it's like very repetitive, and it like not a lot is necessarily going on. It's like I don't know, people joke about saying like, oh, I can play Philip Glass. All you have to do is play arpeggios over and over, and just change the key every once in a while, like, and then stretch it out for like 20 minutes. But that song, yeah, like you can't hate on it. Like it's objectively and intrinsically beautiful, and I don't think that there's too much that you could do to like make it any better. It just sounds great, like all the time, anytime.